collateral by Michael Mann.
That's great. You got some class.
Come on, fucking work, bro. I don't need 3 people to build shit. I like this one guy. He think it's fucking cocky ass. I hate guys like that. Launcher, nah. Short cores, GGS. Fucking jungle, I hate the jungle. Fucking hate jungles.
This happened to me just last Tuesday.
One spot I hate.
Can't stop thinking about it. I'll start this story by saying I'm a 30-year-old female who lives with my fiance and our 2 dogs. I have 2 huskies. One is 2 years old and one is 4 months old. My huskies are not guard dogs. They don't
see Dark Oak over there. Hell yeah.
These dogs just love people so much. My brother-in-law and friends have walked in on multiple occasions and the dogs don't make a peep. So anyways, it's 8 p.m. It's dark out. I'm home alone. My fiance and his friends went to a hockey game. I'm in the bathroom with the door closed and I'm blow drying my hair, so I can't really hear anything going on around me. That is, until I hear one of the dogs start to howl. I stop the blow dryer and listen, thinking that the dogs are fighting again. Then I hear a faint knock and the dogs start going crazy. Barking, howling, jumping into the window so bad I thought they'd break it. I'm thinking, what the heck is making them go crazy like that? Maybe a dog or a skunk or something? I look out my bedroom window as it was the closest view to the front door for me. Well, lo and behold, there's 2 men in hoodies standing at the front door. They start knocking louder than this. 2-year-old husky jumps from the window to the front door and starts growling. I'm watching this from my bedroom as the dogs jump into the door and the men jump back startled. Looks at the other guy and walk away. I called my fiance to get home ASAP. I watched them walk down the road. They obviously weren't selling anything or anything like that because they didn't stop at any other houses. I was so creeped out and stayed there. Thank goodness for my crazy dogs. It was the middle of summer and my parents had left for the weekend to go to our house in the Cape Cod. It's about a 2-hour drive away, so it's no big deal for them to leave me alone for a few days. My mom had some pulled pork and pasta for me to heat up to eat whenever, and I had some money if I wanted to order a pizza. Things were all good. The first night I was alone, I stayed up until 3 in the morning playing Xbox, so I woke up really late the next day. I checked my phone when I woke up and saw it was a little past 1. I'd made plans to play some street hockey with my friends at 3, so I threw myself out of bed and stumbled into the shower. I take really long showers, so when my parents were gone, I was in there for about 45 minutes on my phone, scrolling through Reddit and Twitter and whatnot, when I heard my front door open. The bathroom was directly up the stairs.
Oh, for real? He be loud and shit?
It's pretty loud when the door closes. I immediately froze, since obviously I was supposed to be alone. I waited for about 2 minutes, ears trained in, trying to hear anything else.
Get a little bit of cowboy, the bass going.
I figured it was just the wind. turned off the shower, wrapped my towel around myself, and slowly walked down the stairs to check it out. Even though my house is very old, and each step on the stairs makes a super loud creak, I still took my time and tried to be as quiet as possible. I probably took about 45 seconds walking down all 12 of the stairs. So when I got to the second to last stair, right before I could see around the corner into the kitchen, I take a little breath and compose myself. In my mind, I knew I was being stupid. There obviously wasn't anything in the kitchen. There's no way.
Oh, was a lush cave there too?
There's no reason for them to still be in the kitchen, even if there were burglars or something in the house. After sort of mentally chastising myself for being
it's
such
a creeper,
coward,
and I can't.
I sort of chuckled to myself for being so stupid and just normally walked the
That
last
spider
two stairs,
does come up
turn
here.
the corner into the kitchen. Standing about 2 feet away from me in the middle of the kitchen is a man staring straight at me,
Damn.
perfectly still,
And he dropped
with a
nothing.
massive smile
That's not
across
worth
his
it.
face. Just staring at me.
Just look over here if they got any.
The thing I remember most vividly wasn't his face or his smile, but his arms. They weren't just at his side. He held them in the strangest, most abnormal position I've ever seen. They were where you would normally hold their arms, but he had rotated them to the point where they were almost completely reversed, as well as lifting them up and a little behind himself. I don't know why I remember this so much, but it's just the most demonic, abnormal position I've ever seen.
Let's go this way.
Honest to God, I think I almost had a heart attack right there. Looking back, I can realize how creepy the situation was, but in the moment, I just took a step towards him and punched him as hard as I could in the jaw, sort of half slapping / pushing him towards the ground. The second I connected, I beelined up the stairs, dropping my towel in the kitchen with my heart beating out of control. I sprinted into my room and locked the door behind me. I quickly put a chair up against the doorknob, like you see on TV. Almost without thinking, I immediately called 911, nearly in tears, and I told the operator what had happened. As I sat on the floor of my room, in practically the fetal position, staring at the door, praying that a cop would be here soon, I noticed the light coming from the gap between my door had stopped. The guy was standing outside my door. There's no words to describe the feeling I had. I was paralyzed with fear, watching the shadow across the bottom of the door shift in tiny ways. I stayed balled up, standing at the gap, praying the man would go away for what seemed like an hour. All the while, the 911 operator was asking, "Hello, sir? Sir, are you there? Hello?" I didn't want to make a noise, and even if I wanted to move my arms to bring the phones to my mouth, I don't think I could have. Eventually, the light returned to the gap, and I heard the faintest of footsteps slowly creaking down the wooden floorboards as he walked down the hall. It was silent for minutes, and I just sat there curled up, unable to speak.
I built a base over here, fuck it. I like this area anyways. I don't wanna go too far. I wanna do my own work, my own projects. Let's see
And I
what we
opened the door to the two of them standing where I almost cried. Nowadays, my parents don't even leave me home alone anymore. Thank God. And I check every lock on my house before going to bed. I still get nightmares occasionally. And my heart starts racing whenever I see someone standing still. But I'm doing alright. Even working with sketch artists in a few lineups, the police never found whoever the heck was in my house. I send shivers down my spine every time I look outside, half expecting to see him standing across the street and smiling when the door closed. I have no
Another
idea what
chicken
he
over
looked
here.
or who he was.
Actually,
I was 12 and my older sister and I were home alone for the weekend. I was waiting for a friend to pick me up and getting restless. There was a knock on the door. Thinking it was her, I ran over it without checking through the peephole.
I'm start getting out of food.
A man was standing there with
No
a clipboard
food,
and said he needed to check our gas meter. I was drenched in the disappointment of my friend still not having arrived, so I just told him, "Yeah, sure, whatever you need to do." I didn't notice at the time, but he wasn't dressed as a city official. He had on a green and purple shirt with bold stripes, kind of like the host from Blue's Clues. He came in and immediately went upstairs to where our bedrooms were and walked into the open door of the room. The typical girly girl room with pink and glitter. It was my room. Thank God, my sister came down the stairs at almost that exact moment. She said, "Oh, is that Daphne's dad? Why's he going upstairs?" And I began to complain about how Daphne wasn't here and was going on about how unreliable she was when my sister cut me off. Wait. If Daphne isn't here, who is that? I said, "He's here to read our gas meters." Her face turned white. She flung open the front door and dragged me out, hand clamped over my protesting mouth. She said, "Our gas meters are outside." Neither of us had a cell phone. This was in the 60s. And obviously, we weren't going back in the house to call authorities on the landline phone. Then my ever-resourceful sister had a stroke of genius. A man was walking right by our house, and she motioned him over. He called loudly into the house. "Oh, Dad, it's good you're home. A man from the city is here to read the gas meters upstairs." And just like she'd hoped, the man on the street said, "What are you talking about?" The man in the striped shirt bolted out of the house. The man on the street asked us repeatedly if we were okay, if we needed him to stay and wait in the yard with us until our parents came home. He was very sweet. We were so startled that we barely thanked him before slamming and locking the doors and windows. As irate as my sister was that I let someone in the house, she begged me not to call the authorities because my parents left her in charge and she worried she'd be in trouble. I didn't want to catch any heat from carelessly allowing some guy in, so I was on the same page. 3 weeks later, a girl in our community went missing. Same situation. She was home alone and authorities found the door open and no signs of forced entry. My sister and I discussed our options, but deep down knew we had no choice but to come clean. I don't know if it ever helped, but they did tell us they had reason to believe it was the same man. They also tracked down the man who helped us on the street. Turns out we already knew him. He worked in the butcher shop. We just didn't recognize him. He was lifelong friends with the family after that. Our parents were mortified. They weren't angry with us, just glad we were okay. But they did review all the rules of caution and didn't leave us home alone for a while. They eventually found the girl and said she'd been held for a few days and then burned alive. They never caught the man, but fear not. He was what appeared to be in his early 30s in the 1960s. So in any case, he has to be dead by now. I'm just beyond thankful every day for my sister's resourcefulness and quick action. This happened well over 10 years ago, so I'll try my best to describe the events accurately. One of my childhood homes had a balcony that was attached to both my mother's bedroom and mine via big, double-glass doors in each of our rooms.
Horror stories. Four true scary Home Alone stories. It's like true stories and shit. Like what happened and shit to them.
I heard what sounded like something moving in one of the trees outside. But this didn't worry me because possums and bats are common in our area.
Like and subscribe, y'all. Like and
subscribe. My room and the balcony. As mentioned previously, the doors faced out towards the street, where street lamplight was always visible through my curtains. Shortly after hearing the tree rustling noises, I see a shadow slowly move past the doors, at which point I immediately turn off my reading light and freeze like a deer in headlights. The shadow was tall, so it wasn't one of the neighbor's kids that I'm friends with, and it wasn't my 5-foot-tall mother. The person moved slowly, creeping as though they were trying not to be noticed.
Oh, that's a baby zombie. That's a baby zombie. I'm lagging. What the fuck? God, am I lagging for, bro? I don't see. Make no fucking sense. I don't got no full mod. I'm lagging for no reason, bro. Come on.
I sat there, unable to move
Oh my god, I'm fucking dead here, bro. What the fuck,
Until I heard
bro?
another sound.
Jesus,
Sound of
this
someone
is
trying to open a
fucking
glass
going
door.
bullshit, bro.
My mom's door to the balcony. I didn't know if she had locked them or not, but I wasn't taking any chances. I moved as quickly and as silently as I could to my bedroom door and locked the door. I listened for what that person was doing now. They were still jiggling the glass door handle, but it sounded like the doors weren't opening. I felt relief. This person couldn't get in, surely. All I had to do was wait for them to realize that, and then they would leave, right? Well, I heard loud footsteps move back along the balcony to my set of glass doors, until I saw his shadow stop directly in front of them. Again, I froze.
Make a damn shield. That's what I'm gonna make some.
He couldn't know I can see him. I saw a shadow of a hand reach up to my door's handle, and my heart stopped. Had I actually locked those doors myself today? I was out there earlier. What if I forgot? The seconds leading up to him grabbing the handle felt like an eternity. But thankfully, when this person tried to open the door, it did not open. It was locked. I sighed such a sigh of relief I was worried he had heard it. After this, he began pacing the length of the balcony. I didn't have a mobile phone, as my mom thought me too young to have one, and the landline was at the other end of the house. But I was too scared to take my eyes off this person, or even to call for help. I was silently crying, tears falling down my cheeks as I internally prayed they would just leave. Then I heard him stop moving. He then said, "I could just break the glass, you know." Before I could even process this, I saw car headlights turn around the corner of my street and then stop at our property gate. My mom was home. The person on the balcony moved out of sight, and I heard a loud thump as they jumped off of it. When my mom came inside, I was hysterical and was barely coherent until I knew what happened. Eventually, I got the message across and she called the police. They never found or caught anyone, but a neighbor reported a truck in the street that matched the description of a truck that had been reported recently for attempted child abductions near my school a block away. Since I walked that short distance daily, the police suspected that he had followed me or seen that I lived there and waited for me to be alone.
Don't kill me. Not that gear, yeah. Please don't. Keep it.
Hello everyone, in today's video I will be narrating stories that I found off of
Go,
If
let's
you
go.
enjoy this video, make sure you subscribe to my channel, like this video, and comment something down below. But without further ado, let's get started to the stories.
Going on.
So this happened to me when I was 11 or 12 years old, over a decade ago, and I still remember it vividly. At the time I lived in a semi-detached house with my mom, dad, and sibling. It was decent sized, but the most impressive part was the garden, which essentially had 3 levels. The first level was concrete, the second grass, and the third, also grass, had my trampoline on it. At the very end of the garden was a tree embankment. The area I lived in was somewhat hilly. One morning morning, I woke up to a cracking sound, like a snapped branch, and I was worried since a week earlier a tree from the embankment had fallen into our neighbor's garden. My bedroom was at the back of the house overlooking the garden, so I opened the curtains to see if another tree had fallen. Instead, I saw a guy hiding in one of the trees in the garden. He was pale with blonde hair and wearing all black clothing. He was looking directly at me, presumably because he saw the curtains move. He started smirking and moved his finger in a clumpier motion. I totally freaked out and shouted for my mom and dad to come into my room. I was so scared I physically felt like I couldn't move. This was super early in the morning, by the way, around maybe 5, so it took my dad a good 30 seconds to get in my room, at which point the stranger had hid behind the trees. I remember being really shaken up. I was crying whilst I told my dad what happened. He went out into the back garden to see if he could spot the guy, but he was gone by that point. A bit of time passed and I'd started to forget about it. Then about 3 months after, my mom and I were watching television together after I'd finished school. The doorbell rang and my mom went to answer the door. I looked out the window of the living room where we were sat and saw a white van parked outside. It was the same van as my uncle's, so I walked out of the living room and into the hallway to greet him. When I got to the porch where my mom was stood, I realized it wasn't my uncle. It was the same guy I had seen in the garden a few months prior, and it really freaked me out. He noticed me as I walked behind my mom and gave me the same smirk as when he was in the garden. I wanted to say something to my mom, but I couldn't. I was freaking out inside. Anyway, he just asked my mom if she wanted work done on the drive. She said no, and he left, got back in the van, and drove off. He didn't give her a business card or anything. The van didn't have any company branding, and he didn't knock on any of the neighbors' doors. I told my mom that it was the same guy as soon as he went, and she started to feel uneasy about the situation too. A month or so after that, I got my first job doing the paper round. I had to deliver over 300 papers with my best friend at the time. It was getting towards winter, and it was dark by 4:30 in the afternoon. We'd been doing the job together for around a month when the one evening after school it was super dark and rainy. We were halfway through delivering the newspapers and a van started following us, driving really slow at the same pace we were walking. We thought that it was following us after about a minute, and we started to panic as I noticed it was the same guy again. We left the newspaper trolley and started walking quite fast up the hill. We were about a 10-minute walk from my house.
Come on, zombie work, teamwork. Gotta kill your ass, man.
The corner shop that we were about a minute away from. When we made it to the shop, the van sped off really fast. The police were called, who came to my house for a report. We told them everything. That was the last time I ever saw the creepy stranger, but I still remember what he looked like so vividly. Hi, me, my sister, and my mom have been trying to make sense of this for the past couple of hours, and the facts get less comforting the more we compare our experiences of that night. So last Friday night, I, a 17-year-old dude, was home alone while my family, besides my sister who is 21 who was at work, stayed in their cabin a few kilometers away. I'm used to staying home alone as this exact scenario is very common in the summertime, especially while I'm working and can't travel from the cabin and back. I'm not usually jumpy or afraid while home alone anymore, used to the odd creaks and settling noises of our old house. I was especially comforted by the fact that my sister's dog was also in the house with me that night, and most noises could be attributed to the dog. If anything were to happen, he would act as a guard dog of sorts and alert me to anything odd. At the same time, however, he is the type of dog to bark at any noise or person walking past the door or windows, so I'm used to hearing him bark or growl at night. Even so, this past Friday, the sound of his barks at nearly 12 in the morning were disconcerting, to say the least. Despite my comfort with staying home alone, I am still terrified at the premise of a break-in or some other uninvited human interaction at midnight. I let him bark for a few seconds, telling myself it was just someone walking past our glass door in the adjacent alleyway, and he would quiet down once they passed. Needless to say, that's not what happened. He kept barking and growling for a few moments too long, and I finally got out of bed. I sleep in the basement. I walked upstairs to check it out, as I'd suspected he was standing alert at the glass door. I was comforted for a moment until I walked over, ready to close the curtains and go back to sleep, and saw the door open about 2 or 3 inches. I froze. I had let Bosco, the dog, out earlier that night, but I know I closed the door. I have never left this door open. I am a paranoid person with bad anxiety, especially concerning break-ins and the like, so I would never, home alone, forget to close the door. I am 100% certain. But at the time, I didn't let myself think about these facts or even acknowledge that I could not
Fucking
have left the door
nice.
open.
Spiders.
Possibly even an anxiety panic attack if I didn't explain this away. I closed and locked the door, double checking that it was certainly locked. Using the flashlight on my phone, the lights were all off. I looked around the entire second floor of my 3-floor house, including closets and other reasonable hiding spots, just to put my mind at ease upon finding nothing. Went back downstairs to my room. As I was down there, trying to push away the fear, I could hear Bosco walking around on the floor that doubles as my
fuck,
for about
Creeper?
10
Where you
minutes
come
before I
from, bro?
put in
You're
my
not following
earphones
me,
and talk
bro.
myself down until I could fall asleep. At 2 in the morning that same night, my sister comes home from work. I woke up a few minutes before this to Bosco in the basement, which he never does. There's even a gate to stop him from getting to the basement. Bosco is whining at my bedroom door. When I got up to let him out, my sister walked in, and we let him out the front door rather than the glass patio door, letting him in the same way. We talked for a while before I went back downstairs, and my sister went to the bathroom. I forgot about the door, busy with work for the next few days, and forgot to mention it to anyone until tonight. My sister and mom were home with me for a movie night while my dad and brothers stay at the cabin. I remember the door situation when we were picking out horror movies to watch. I was sharing it as a creepy, almost funny story before my sister spoke up, saying that the same night, an hour or so after they got home, the door was open again, the same door that was locked from the inside and not open since earlier that night. My stomach dropped and I started shaking the second this was revealed. We first started trying to explain it away. Maybe she had let Bosco out and forgot to close it until we both recalled that we'd used the front door. Then we were trying to justify a reason someone would break in to not steal anything and proceed to stay for 2 hours before leaving. Ultimately, I realized that I quite possibly locked someone in the house with me, then forced them to hide upstairs while I searched the second level of our house. Then this hypothetical person would be trapped up there now knowing that this house, that appears empty with the rest of my family gone and all the lights off, was not empty, and there was a dog who would bark if they showed themselves again, alerting me to their presence. Then, when I was in the basement and my sister was in the bathroom, they ran out the glass door, which is timed perfectly to when they found the door open once more, much wider than when I found it, as though they were only in a hurry on the way out. Perhaps they left it open the first time for a quick
Nigga,
escape,
Iron
or to stop the loud
Axe.
sound of it meeting the door frame. Either way, it ties together too perfectly for me to reasonably brush it off. I know it's unlikely, especially with nothing missing, but in this small town, there have been many reports of break-ins with nothing missing, vandalizing, or just breaking and entering many times, so it's not as unlikely as it may be in New York City. I can't make sense of this, and I'm shaken up thinking of the possibility of someone being in my house while I was asleep, alone in the basement. There's a part of me that doesn't believe it, but I can't shake the too many coincidences that all tie together to make this as concerning as it is. I certainly am glad that my searching came up empty that night, and I did not meet this person face to face. In the summer of 2020, my friends Alex and Violet and I decided to go on a mountain vacation. Pandemic cabin fever had hit us hard and we were desperate to get out. We settled on a mountain estate and planned to camp and hike at several different locations. For one night, we thought it would be fun to book a cabin in the woods. Violet's parents had
Don't
rented a
impact
fire
my
tower
shit.
once
Don't
in
impact my
London,
shit.
but a cabin
Look for new
beside a fire
location.
tower was all we could find. It was cheap, clean, and secluded. Excited to have a night where we could be as obnoxious as we wanted, we booked it. In the weeks leading up to the trip, we decided it would be a great idea to drop acid at the cabin. Violet bought an entire sheet in preparation for our arrival, and it was tucked in her bag as we pulled out of the driveway to make our way to the cabin. I remember this knot in the pit of my stomach, this icky feeling that gnawed at me. I told Alex and Violet that there was no way we could drop acid that night. Violet was pissed. We turned around and got into a massive argument, but I stood my ground. I just knew that we had no business tripping that night. Finally, the fireworks settled and we were off. The cabin was roughly 30 minutes away from the nearest town. It sat atop a mountain. We held our breath as we rounded the busted road that spiraled toward the top. There were no pull-offs, no other campsites, just a long, winding road that led us to the cabin at the peak. We
He's
settled
gonna
in and
wash out
started
my
a fire to
ass.
keep warm. As dusk gave way
That
to
fucking
night, we
shit.
heard the unmistakable noise of an engine on the road, then the flash of headlights. A side-by-side with 3 kids arrived and our nerves settled. They smiled, gave us a wave, climbed the fire tower, and left. We'd heard there may be occasional visitors to the fire tower, but they were the only ones who'd come by. We doused the fire and moved inside, heated some hot dogs until they were lukewarm, ate them fast, and sat in the silence. You don't know how quiet it is until you're in the middle of nowhere. You can hear every rustle of the leaves, the whisper of the wind through their branches. You get so used to white noise. Living in the city, there's always the hum of an air conditioner or the dim roar of traffic to focus on. Here, the closest thing to white noise was the sound of our own breathing. We jumped at every noise, too frightened to speak to one another, and finally, I'd had enough. I cracked a few wine coolers, passed them to Alex and Violet, and slapped a board game down on the table between our bunk beds. It didn't take long for us to loosen, and we were laughing, having the raucous good time we'd envisioned. Much soberer than we thought, but enough that we were able I would never be a victim because I was quote-unquote smart enough to stay out of trouble, not go out alone late at night. All the cliches. I seriously regret this behavior now, and to anyone listening to this, please never think that you're 100% safe, no matter your level of preparedness. Always do your best to stay observant and careful. The first incident wasn't too unusual. I was just a block or two from my apartment building one day in the early evening. It was still light outside. I was walking my dog Sesame, a cute Shiba Inu who just looks like a fluffy, goofy puppy and has never been frightening or particularly protective in his life. As I was heading back home, I passed a small parking lot and entered a large van. I could see a man in his early 60s sitting in the driver's seat smoking a cigarette. He was staring at me. As I passed, he actually leaned out of his car and called out to me, "Hey, you there? That's a cute dog. What's his name?" I should mention this isn't even my first story like this. I have a pretty intense fear of strangers because of other incidents in my life. Being pretty wary for this reason, I ignored him and just walked faster. I heard a car door shut behind me and turned quickly to see that he had gotten out of his van and was slowly walking toward me. He called out to me again, "Hey, baby, I just want to see your dog." Feedback. His phrasing pissed me off, and I gripped my dog's leash and started to speed walk away from him, starting to feel nervous. My heart was beginning to pound, but I kept telling myself over and over that I was overreacting, and it was just my paranoia acting up, and there was nothing to worry about. Boy, was I wrong. I managed to turn the corner and was about to cross the final part before getting to my apartment. In my fear over the van guy, I wasn't paying attention as much as I usually do to what was in front of me. I looked back over my shoulder and the guy had stopped following me. He was, however, standing in the middle of the sidewalk with a huge creepy grin on his face. I whirled back around with my eyes glued to my building. I only needed to walk another half a block and I'd be home. I was going to get away from him and his creepy van. Just when I thought I was safe, a group of 5 or 6 men came from the side of the park I wasn't watching. They were all tall and intimidating in stature, and all of them were laughing and looking right at me. Out of the corner of my eye, the van guy had started walking towards me as well. I remember he was whistling. I again picked up my pace and desperately searched for my keys in my pocket as I hurried to the door. The group of men then veered towards me, partially cutting me off, and in all my stupid politeness I stopped. They grinned at me with sick, perverted smiles, obviously checking me out. Looking up and down my body, it made me sick. I tried not to panic and inched closer to my apartment. "Hey, what's your name? Where are you going? What's your Snapchat? Is that your apartment? Can we come over? Do you smoke?" They all barraged me with questions one after another. I tried to refuse them, stammering no thank you. I saw the van guy come and join their group, leering at me. While I inched away, they inched closer. One of them then reached out for me, his fingers actually touching my arm. I leapt back, trying not to start crying, but Sesame suddenly lunged at them, his teeth bared, a horrifying snarl ripping from his throat. Every bit of cute Shiba personality was gone, and he looked like he was wanting to tear one of these guys' throats out. It startled them enough that I was able to turn and sprint the final distance to my building, locking the door behind me. I fell to the floor inside my building, hugging Sesame. However, the entire front of my building was glass, and to my horror and disbelief, the group of men came and stood in front of the windows, grinning at me, laughing, and making kissy faces and lewd gestures at me. The apartment manager came out and called the cops on them, but they ran away. I made it back home and scrubbed myself in the shower, crying and shaking with fear. Sesame got a special dinner that evening, and I kept telling myself that they just wanted to mess with me and I was never in any real danger. Stupid of me, I know now. About a month later, when I had finally managed to be able to walk outside my apartment without severe anxiety, I was actually planning on moving a bit farther away from campus. It was still going to be in a sketchy neighborhood, but the thought of those men knowing where I lived kept me up at night. My apartment actually hired a security guard to be there 24/7 after someone had broken into the building, smashed all the windows, destroyed some of the furniture, and stolen a bunch of bikes. Of course, my bike got
Oh my
stolen.
god,
Anyways,
why gotta be a Trident?
class, and it was a beautiful day.
Why?
I actually felt pretty happy for once.
What the fuck I do to this guy, bro? This guy come out of nowhere.
Stupid, I know. After a block or so, I started to feel like someone was watching me. My palms started sweating.
This guy really fucking trying hard at me right now, bro. Like,
Man was about 20 feet behind me, staring straight at me.
the fuck,
I snapped
bro?
my head back around and ripped out my earbuds. Ew, I thought,
Oh
that
my
can't be one of
god,
them. I
man.
was just jumping to conclusions given my anxiety disorder and paranoia surely, but there was something familiar about him. My heart started racing as I hoped to God the others weren't waiting for me around the corner of my building, ready to jump me. I walked faster, wishing Sesame was with me. I was too afraid to look back at him as I fumbled with my keys and wrenched the door open as hard as I could. This turned out to be a crucial mistake. As I ran to the elevator, trying to breathe a sigh of relief, I saw with absolute horror that the man who held the door I had thrown wide open and was slowly coming into the building with me. He paused, standing away from me, but close enough that I could hear his ragged breathing and smell of alcohol coming off him. My heart was thudding in my chest now, and I struggled to think clearly. The apartment manager was already home for the day, and I was completely alone in the lobby. There were no other doors out of that room, and the stranger was blocking my way to the door. The security guard, supposed to be keeping an eye on the building, was nowhere to be seen. The elevator came, and I tried to run into it and slam my hand over the door close button as fast as I could. I pushed my floor button and huddled in the far corner of the elevator. I started to once again try to catch my breath, but right when the door was almost closed, he stuck his hand in. I couldn't believe it. He waited until the door was just about to close, and then he stopped it. He was standing close enough that there was no way that was a mistake. My stomach dropped, and a suffocating sense of dread crept in. I kept wondering how long he joined me. My desperate hope that he was just a dirty, drunken resident of the building was dashed when he didn't press any buttons. I don't know why I didn't run out of the elevator or try to leave the building again. I was paralyzed with fear, and all I could do was watch as the door closed and sealed my fate. The elevator was filled with the stench of alcohol and body odor. If I wasn't so terrified, I may have gagged. It was nauseating. I couldn't look
Fucking
at him.
creeper, get out of here, bro.
I tried to scream at myself in my head to press the wrong button and try to escape him, but I was completely petrified. He leaned closer to me, and I heard him breathe in deeply and very quietly sigh, like he was content. I felt tears well in my eyes, and the seconds it took to reach the top floor where I lived felt like hours. I saw no way I could escape the sick, drunk guy who was smelling me. In the reflection of the elevator walls, I could make out his disgusting smile. He was staring directly at me, his hands in his pockets, clearly holding onto something. I'm not religious, but I prayed that I would make it to my door in time. I realized he probably wasn't going to attack me in the elevator. There was a large camera in the ceiling. I looked up at it, feeling a tear spill out of my eye as I did so, hoping that whoever saw the tape eventually would identify this man. The worst part of all of this is that I've trained in martial arts and self-defense since I was about 8 years old. I thought of myself as stronger and braver than I was acting. I should know what to do. I should be strong enough to do it. But no matter how many times I had disarmed, thrown, or choked out attackers in the studio, nothing totally prepares you for the dread of a real-life situation. As the elevator reached my floor, I managed to snap out of my stupor long enough to dash to the door and run to my apartment unit. I nearly missed the keyhole, but I threw open my door. I was nearly through when my backpack snagged on the outside handle of the door, trapping me. I heard the man walking quickly to my door, a low chuckle building in his throat as he watched me panic and struggle to get free. I felt like a mouse being watched by a cat, trapped and helpless, so close to escaping. I finally gave up and shoved my arms through the straps, abandoning my backpack. As I did so, the man suddenly reached out for me. I was able to slam the door shut, deadbolting it. The gust of air from the door slamming brought his disgusting smell in with me, and in my terror and disgust I wrenched violently. I looked through the peephole. He was staring right at me, pressing his forehead against the door, his mouth bent in a furious scowl. He swore at me and ripped my backpack off the handle of the door, slamming it to the ground. I winced as I heard my laptop thud. I was still too terrified to say anything, but I grabbed the knife I kept by my door in my hand, ready if he tried anything. After a few minutes of staring at my door, jiggling the handle, licking the peephole, and making obscene motions at it, he unzipped my backpack, dumping its contents on the floor. He picked up my bag, sniffing it and leering at the peephole as he did so, like he knew I was watching him. I couldn't look away, again paralyzed in fear. Finally he left, using the elevator visible from my door like nothing had happened. I continued to stare out the peephole for what felt like an eternity, and then finally called the apartment manager, feeling my anger sinking and that the security guard hadn't been anywhere in sight, not paying attention. It turns out he had fallen asleep eating Taco Bell and watching movies on his phone. He was only 10 feet away from the elevator the entire time, sleeping in the office behind a closed door. They fired him, but the creepy guy was never caught, and neither were any of the others. I don't even know for sure if this man was part of the original group. I was honestly too terrified to look much at their faces during the first incident. I moved out of my apartment a week later, staying with my boyfriend at the time for the remainder of my lease, and keeping Sesame with me at all times when possible. A few more things happened while I lived in that city, from having to call in a gunfight from outside my new apartment window, to having to pick up my friend who was being followed by a van, to having to evacuate during an arson incident. There are nice things about that city too, but during my time there, besides learning the police department was absolutely useless and corrupt, to nearly escape me with my life multiple times, I couldn't be happier to be far, far away from there, and doing a lot better with my fear and anxiety. I want to start by saying that this isn't the first bad experience I've had dog sitting, but it's definitely the worst. So I started dog sitting back when I was 13 and made good money doing it. I'm currently 19 and this happened when I was 18. I set up an easy way for people to contact me about dog sitting. I put out a post on Facebook and Instagram about it often and would get people in my messages asking to dog sit. I got a notification from Instagram one day stating someone was trying to message me. I accepted it and the message said that me and my wife are looking to find a dog sitter while we go away for a week to Florida. You will have to work the 4th to the 11th this month. We will pay you $300 for the week. You're welcome to stay at our house or go back to your own home. I started talking back and forth with this man and we're gonna call him Mr. Brown for the sake of privacy. So I agreed to take the gig and told him I would stay at his house for the week. Once I got to his house, I was introduced to his 2 dogs, Mina and Letty. Mina was a little Yorkie and Letty was a blue hound. I was shown around his house, which was surrounded by 76 acres. I live in a farm town and live on 32 acres myself, so staying here didn't really freak me out. The closest neighbors were pretty far away and you would actually have to drive there if you wanted to talk to them. They told me their rules and when to feed them, stuff like that. Then Mrs. Brown told me about the nearest neighbor. In her words, she was a nice person, just a little drugged up and confused. She mentioned how sometimes she would pull into their driveway instead of hers and would end up mistaking Mrs. Brown for her dead daughter. Hearing this made me feel pretty bad for her, and I knew all too well how hard it is for parents to lose their child because of how my parents were after losing my brother in a car accident. Mrs. Brown said she shouldn't do anything bad though, and if she came up to the house, just point her back home and she should leave with no problems. After they left, I was down to watch movies and just chill with the dogs. The first night with no hiccups. The third day, however, the old woman who I call Miss Rose did pull into the driveway. I came outside and she was getting out. She looked up to see me and immediately she got back in her car and left. I chalked it up to her realizing it was the wrong house when she saw me and went back inside. Later that night, though, I got a call from Mrs. Brown asking if I was okay. I said yes and asked why. She then went on to tell me about how she got a call from Miss Rose and that she said there was a robber at their house. I explained what happened and she just laughed and said she must have been confused and forgot that they were out of town. I ended the phone call making a note to go over there tomorrow to clear the air about me being a robber. Once I went to bed that night, though, things got crazy. I woke up at around 2 in the morning hearing a light scratching sound that almost sounded like ticking coming from outside the window. At first I thought it might have been a bird or some sort of white creature and left it alone. But as the noise kept me from falling back asleep, I wanted to scare it away, so I got up and went to open the blinds, but screamed when I lifted the blinds and the
I'm gonna take a break, y'all. Saying y'all,
I
gotta go do some stuff in real life.
She started banging on the window with the pliers.
I'm trying to get this down first,
I
quick.
got up, told the dogs to follow me, grabbed my phone, and ran to a room with no windows, which was
I'm
the
going
bathroom.
out of wood when I get back on, so check
I
out all
called
the
the
wood right
cops
now.
and explained the situation, quickly giving them
Oh, my
the
leg just fall
address
asleep. Shit.
She said that police would be there in 10 minutes, which for the area I was in is pretty good considering their house is in a pretty rural area. I had gotten the dogs to be quiet and put them in the closet connected to the bathroom to make sure she
Oh,
didn't
my
hear them.
leg
I
just
was
fall
ready to stay calm, but I
fucking
could still hear
sleep,
the
bro.
banging on the
Damn,
window
man.
as I continued to talk to the operator, and then I heard glass shatter. I cursed under my breath, trying not to cry. I was really scared and pretty much ready to cry from the fear of being beaten to death by someone who was clearly not in the right state of mind. I was whispering what was happening to the operator hiding in the back of the bathroom in the tub. After about 4 minutes of pretty much silence, I heard footsteps and I could see right under the other side of the door, and I cursed to myself again. I then see Miss Rose get on her hands looking under the crack, and I mistakenly let out a gasp. She gets up quickly, pounding at the door. I can tell she's still using the pliers. I am at this point crying, asking the operator where the police are, to which she responds 3 minutes. Those 3 minutes felt like forever. I screamed at Ms. Rose to please go away, and she screamed back that I shouldn't be here. Once I heard the sound of police cars, and about a minute later of them trying to kick the door down, though, I felt a little better. I was told to stay on the line until the intruder was caught, and that police were not trying to get into the house. Eventually, they did get into the house, and I yelled to get their attention, not that they needed it. She was still banging on the door. Once they got
I'll be back on soon. I gotta go do some stuff right quick in real life. Well, everyone having a great day. Yeah. Bye.
Shaking and crying, knowing I was this close to whatever he had planned for me. And that's why I'm sharing this story in hopes that people will ignore that gut feeling, the little voice in the back of your head that tells you to